This is KBC Prime Edition, bringing you the Eye on the News this Tuesday, the 12th of October 2021. Good evening. My name is Mboya.
My name is Museo. Remember, you can catch this live broadcast on all our social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at KBC Channel 1 News at Purity, _Museo at Mboya24, the hashtag as always, Prime Edition.
Plus live in studio, Dr. Rose Jalango. We speak to her about the breakthrough in the fight against malaria. But first, a look at our headline stories.
That there is no agreed maritime boundary between the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Republic of Kenya that follows the parallel of latitude described in...
No conclusive resolution. International Court of Justice rules that there is no agreed maritime boundary between Kenya and Somalia.
Seeking fairness, members of parliament accuse IEBC of bias in the ongoing voter registration exercise.
Break imekuwa kidogo sana, such that we were not able to kupata pesa ambazo zilikuwa zilipe fees. Na kwa sababu hiyo tunawarudisha na madeni.
It's back to school. Parents decry cost implications. Many thanks indeed for joining us from wherever you are watching.
And a very warm welcome to the broadcast. Lucy Maura is our sign language interpreter tonight. Let's now get started. The International Court of Justice has noted that there is no agreed maritime boundary between the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Republic of Kenya. Kenya, which claims the entire area of the East African coast, said last week that it would not recognize the jurisdiction of the Hague-based court.
In a ruling delivered by Chief Judge Joan Donegal, the UN top court ruled that there was no agreed maritime boundary and drew a new border close to the one claimed by Somalia, allowing Kenya to keep part of the 100,000 square kilometer area.
For these reasons, the court, 1, unanimously finds that there is no agreed maritime boundary between the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Republic of Kenya that follows the parallel of latitude described in paragraph 35 above. 2, unanimously decides that the starting point of the single maritime boundary delimiting the respective maritime areas between the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Republic of Kenya is the intersection of the straight line extending from the final permanent boundary beacon, PB29, at right angles to the general direction of the coast with the low water line.
Somalia dragged Kenya to the ICJ in the year 2014 over the disputed patch of sea. Kenya's maritime area is approximately 255,000 kilometers, which was determined through parallel of latitudes in 1979. Somalia recognized Kenya's claim to the EEZ agreement for 35 years before heading to the Hague Court, citing failed talks to resolve the matter.
Sisi kama wavuvi wa kutoka maeneo ya Lamu ndio wavuvi wa pekee ambao tunatumia hizo sehemu ambazo kwamba wao wanazipigania, na tukasema ya kwamba ingekuwa bora wao waweze kutuhusisha sisi kama wavuvi ili tuweze kujua hata sisi hatima yetu itakuwa namna gani.
Tutavua kwa sababu kuna pahali kama ito Shakani, kuna pahali Kiunga, alafu watu wengi kutoka Pate Island wanaenda hizo sehemu kwenda kuvua kama tunaita ago.
Kenya has already warned that they will not cede even an inch of the territory and vowed it will not recognize the outcome of the case.
The maritime boundary between the parties having been determined, the court expects that each party will fully respect the sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction of the other in accordance with international law.
From From the Kenya-Somalia maritime dispute, let's move on to voter registration. And the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee has taken issue with the manner in which the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, is conducting the ongoing voter registration exercise. The committee claims that there is no equity and fairness, as some populated wards have been supplied with limited equipment for registration. Timothy Kipnusu is with that story.
Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission was on Tuesday put to task by the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to explain how it arrived at the decision to distribute 3 BVR kits to every ward. The committee wants IEBC to review the decision, considering that some wards are populous and it may not attain the desired results of enlisting 6 million new voters before the 2022 general election.
There are some wards where not all the BVR kits, the 3 are working. So they are less, they're not even 3, so they're less than 3. One of the examples is Makinan Road ward in Kwale County. Also, there have been changes of dates.
The committee also seeking answers on how the commission will address voter transfers instigated by certain politicians for their own selfish gains. The commission vowing that it will only honor voter transfer requests for those who have been registered for at least 6 months.
These are regulations passed by Parliament. So then what we need to come out of this room with is how else can a registration officer ensure that one has been a resident before they approve that transfer.
The committee was not, however, amused with the commission constantly shifting blame to other entities, calling on the chairman Wafula Chebukati, who was present, to put his house in order.
IEBC amendment bill is a story which we don't know. There is no such a bill in Parliament. And I want to be on record and on media. This bill does not exist, and I want to speak I'm stating also as a member of House Business Committee, we don't have such a bill.
Chebukati instead throwing the ball back to Parliament, claiming some bills to guide the 2022 general election are still pending, yet time was running.
As we speak now, there's no law guiding boundary limitation. The law which is there is spent. It was spent with the first review in 2012. Now, after we came up with that draft with the previous jailer committee, that bill is in Parliament, having been forwarded some times back.
Timothy Kipnusu for Prime Edition.
Elsewhere, Deputy President William Ruto has called on Parliament to allocate enough resources to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to enable it conclusively conduct the voter registration exercise. Ruto said IEBC should leave no stone unturned in ensuring the targeted 6 million voters are registered. Speaking after meeting a section of Mount Kenya and Ukambani aspirants under the United Democratic Alliance Party at his current office, Ruto said majority of those targeted in the voter registration drive are young people who deserve the opportunity to define their destiny.
Wale wenzetu ambao wako bunge, please, we are asking the Parliament of Kenya to appropriate resources to IEBC to give them the capacity to enlist the 6 million voters by making sure that they have the right infrastructure and financial ability to reach every voter that is not enlisted as a voter. There are people who are following others blindly. I don't want nobody to follow me blindly. I want us to agree that we are going this way, and everybody must reasonably understand that we are going this way for this reason. I have told you, number one, you have made the right decision to participate in the politics of your country. We must build our agenda on matters that are dear to the people of Kenya.
From an appeal for resources to IEBC, let's look at an item here on security. And government has directed all non-residents of designated troubled areas of Laikipia County to vacate with immediate effect in an effort aimed at enhancing security within the region. The government is also deploying special forces and equipment to deal with what it terms hardcore bandits who have taken advantage of the drought situation in neighboring areas to commit criminal incursions. Despite the enhanced presence of security teams, criminals are still challenging government to restore normalcy in Laikipia County. In a statement, the government has directed all non-residents in Laikipia to vacate designated areas with immediate effect in an effort aimed at enhancing security in the region. The government also says special forces and equipment will be deployed to help beef up security. A special command team will also monitor and continuously review the operation to rid Laikipia of criminal elements. The latest move coming only a day after 3 people were killed by bandits said to have been on a revenge mission after their attempts to steal livestock was thwarted by security personnel.
Legislators from the northeastern region are blaming the government for what they term as a slow response to the drought situation in the region. Garissa Township Member of Parliament Aden Duale, who on Tuesday moved an adjournment motion in the National Assembly to discuss the crisis and solutions, noted that the region is in a sorry state and that the situation is likely to get worse in the next few months. Members present echoed the sentiment, saying that little is being done to help affected families.
The people of the north are dying, and they are not dying not because of the constant insecurity that they face, not because of diseases. They are dying because of the effects of drought. They are dying because government response is not there, or it is very slow. We want to ask government to talk to its friends and partners and create a humanitarian crisis appeal.
Mr. Speaker, this is a sad state. This is a very sorry state, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if nothing is not done in the next couple of days, we will not be talking about the people in the north. You see so many people, presidential candidates, are encouraging people to go and register. How does a hungry man go and register?
It is really very, very sad situation that we are facing in the north. Mr. Speaker, I have been to the constituency, and what I have seen, I have never seen such a kind of situation in my constituency, Ijara, Mr. Speaker. People have migrated as far as Wajir, Marsabit, and everywhere you'll find the animals in my constituency.
Because the government is to advise the pastoralists on the weather so that they can plan to do either destocking and restocking, but there were no advice by the Ministry of Agriculture. So, Mr. Speaker, I request the government to compensate the pastoralists for the.
Let's shift gears and move into the space of education. And schools across the country have resumed learning for the second term under the COVID-19 crash program, with parents decrying the high costs involved. On Tuesday, learners thronged various bus termini back as public service vehicle operators hiked fares to cash in on the high demand.
Tuesday morning, learners across the country made their way back to school. This just after a one-week break under the crash program that was adopted following the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Transport operators making a kill from the rush.
Fare imepanda sana. Leo tunalipa 1000 na tunalipaga 500. Tumesinywa kidogo.
Ile shida iko ni shida magari. Sababu ukiangalia kwa stage hakuna watu wako wengi, lakini magari haziko.
According to the operators, the rise in bus fare was inevitable owing to the demand at the time.
Na demand ikienda juu, mpaka bei nayo ipande. Inaendanga tu hivyo kwa biashara. Kama saa hii sasa tumeongeza karibu 100% from 500 tuna charge 1000.
Many learners, however, failed to reach school on time. A cross-section of parents expressing frustrations on the cost implication of the crash program.
It's an odd hour, an odd time in the month. You can see it is the 15th, about the 11th there. People haven't even got their advance. The end month is so far away. Parents are expected to go and clear the fee balances. So those are the challenges that are there.
Kusema la kule hatujajipanga, ni kulazimisha tu ile mambo mtoto umpeleke, arudishwe, aje akae, na bado kuna areas ya tamu iliyopita bado hatujalipa. Shule zikifungwa unasema acha tukae tungojee vile tutakavyofanya. Wachanga huko shule zishafunguliwa.
Ni muda kidogo sana na wale watoto wanataka kukula, wanataka kukunywa, nyumba itakulipwa. Kwa hiyo tungependelea serikali tuangalilie mahali pale.
Challenge imekuwa kwamba fees imepanda na tena break imekuwa kidogo sana, such that we were not able to kupata pesa ambazo zilikuwa zilipe fees. Na kwa sababu hiyo tunawarudisha na madeni. We hope hawatarejeshwa nyumbani tena.
I have not had any challenges to report to the media, but I am comfortable with the administration of the school. And for the school fees, we have just paid as it was requested on the fee structure that we were given for the year. For the second term, we have paid it the way it is requested to be.
Learners will be in school until 23rd December 2021 when schools close for the second term break.
Hi, from education matters to the pandemic situation in the country. 65 people have tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 3,198 tested in the last 24 hours. The Minister of Health says the positivity rate is at 2%. Of the new cases, 61 are Kenyans and 4 foreigners. A total of 251,313 people have been infected, and the total tests conducted are slightly over 2.6 million since the first case was reported a year and a half ago. In the last one day, 296 patients have recovered, while 712 are admitted at various health facilities countrywide. The death toll has risen to 5,195 after 5 more deaths were recorded. 1 occurred in the last 24 hours, while 4 are late reports from facility audit records in the month of October. Globally, more than 238.3 million people have tested positive for coronavirus, while over 4.85 million have succumbed to the disease. Let's now shift our focus to the mass vaccination exercise. The government's ambitious campaign of vaccinating 5.8 million people by October 20th is 1.6 million short of the target 8 days to Mashujaa Day celebrations. Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, says that they are working closely with county governments on a mass sensitization campaign to achieve the target. Nairobi County is so far leading with numbers of those fully vaccinated at 12.7%, with Marsabit tailing at 0.4%. The government plans to vaccinate 27 million people by June next year.
The government is not relenting in its quest to vaccinate 10 million people by the end of the year. As of October 11th, a total of 4,210,315 vaccines had been administered across the country.
The uptake of the second dose among those who received their first dose is at 32%. The proportion of adults fully vaccinated stands at 3.9%. And government is working towards vaccinating a targeted population of 27,246,000 Kenyans by June next year.
Nairobi County is the highest, with 30.9% of the population receiving the first dose, whereas Marsabit is at the bottom with only 1.3% of residents vaccinated. 12.7% have been fully immunized in Nairobi, followed by Nyeri 9.5, Uasin Gishu 5.9, Laikipia 4.8, Nyandarua 4.6, Nakuru 4.2, while Marsabit is the least with 0.4, having been fully vaccinated. The uptake of the second dose among those who received their first dose is at 32%. At the same time, the Ministry of Health is urging parents to make sure girls aged between 10 and 12 years are vaccinated against the human papilloma virus.
The Ministry of Health has also rolled out the human papilloma virus vaccine for girls aged between 10 to 12 years with the aim of reducing the incidence of cervical cancer later in life.
Ruth Wamboi for Prime Edition.
Well, it's time for us to take our first break.
Absolutely. At KBC Channel 1 News at Purity_Museo at Mboya 24. Keep tweeting.
Remember, we'll be talking to Dr. Rose Jalango, and we will be discussing the malaria vaccine rollout, the pilot project right here in Kenya. So stay with us.
Katika nchi hii pia Wajerumani walitaka sana kujenga railway kuingia bara kutoka pwani ili kuifungua hii nchi kubwa. Shida biashara ya watumwa ilikuwa hata mbaya kuliko vile ilivyokuwa katika Kenya na Uganda.
Ili kupata sikiza tune hii ya kibeti, bonyeza *811*962#.
Hadi umefanya vizuri sana kunifikia hii simu sasa. Nimekuwa na stress kutoka asubuhi kabisa. Na ni huyu mtu ambaye alikuwa anapatiana majina ya vitu. Kwani hakutufikiria sisi watu wa Eastern Ukambani? Ni nani alisema ati wife kwa Kiswahili ni mke? Na akasema ati handbaka. Hii inabebwa na mwanamke handbaka. Ati kwa Kiswahili ni kibeti. Huku kwetu mke ndiye kibeti.
Ili kupata sikiza tune hiyo ya kibeti, bonyeza *811*962#. *811*962#.
Welcome back to the second part of this live broadcast.
And we continue with our coverage tonight. ODM leader Raila Odinga has promised to have the youth allocated at least 4 cabinet slots if he is elected president in 2022. Raila, who was speaking during a meeting with a group of youth from the Mount Kenya region at the University of Nairobi, said time had come for Kenya to invest in the youth through an affirmative plan. The opposition leader reiterating his pledge of 6,000 shillings a month for the jobless Kenyans once he ascends to power.
During a public lecture organized by the youth from the Mount Kenya region, focus was on how the youth that form a majority of the country's population can be empowered.
The youth voice is important in their decision-making processes because I was being reminded that Barack Obama mentioned that you can't play football with 11 players only. You need 22. And the youth of this country, Jacom, are part of that 22 team. You can't play it with 11 and we need to be on the table.
If we are not on the table, we are on the menu. And you know what happens when you're on the menu? You are eaten dry, my friend. So we don't want to be eaten dry. What we want is to be on the table, because if the president is meeting and in that cabinet there are at least 4 or 5 young people, the mentorship will be on another level.
ODM leader Raila Odinga pledging job creation, tax holiday, as well as creating a stand-alone ministry for the youth if elected president in the next year's general election.
No society can grow if half of the population are not working and dependent on the other half. And these are part of the population that is productive.
Raila noted that if the youth are empowered, there will be a source of wealth creation, further stating that this was part of the BBI agenda.
Strongly that if we bring that spirit that brought independence in this country, here in this country, we can be able to lift this country from where it is to where the founding fathers wanted it to be.
The ODM leader promising to have the youth in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as young people form the bulk of labor export by the country.
That when we get to power, we know that it will take us time to reach a stage where everybody has got an income, something active in which they have incomes. But we said, and before we get there, we don't want to see any Kenyan starving.
Leaders who attended the forum rooting for a Raila presidency, saying it meant well for this nation.
The hope of a Mama Mboga waking up very early in the morning, looking for school fee for his or her daughter. The hope of a boda rider, and I believe that that hope will be given by none other than Raila Amolo Odinga.
The GDP of Philippines is out of labor migration. We do not have the natural resources. We don't have the petroleum. We do not have much to sell to the world, but we have the capacity of Kenya.
Bei ya mafuta lazima ishuke katika serikali yako, hii tunaita gava ya baba. Kwa sababu hata hao wakulima wanatumia hata hiyo mafuta kwa matrakta yao wakati wanaenda kulima.
Tunasondeka. Are you ready? Are you ready?
And last week on Friday, the World Health Organization did endorse the first malaria vaccine, and the trials for that vaccine were happening right here in Kenya on the western part of the country. With the vaccine, are we out of the woods yet, or what's going to happen? Tom tonight is speaking with Dr. Rose Jalango, who is from the National Vaccination Immunization Program, the Minister of Health. Of course, you do not want to miss that conversation. Do we rely on the vaccine alone, or do we still need to use our mosquito nets and repellents? So keep tweeting at KBC Channel 1 News, at Museo, at Mboya24, and ask us a few questions, and let's look forward for that comprehensive interview. So Tom, it's over to you.
Welcome back. As we have promised you, Dr. Rose Jalango from the Ministry of Health, live in studio. She's attached to the National Vaccines and Immunization Program. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you for having me in the studio.
Very well. Now, we'll get straight into it. The World Health Organization has approved a vaccine against malaria that is being seen as a major milestone. And before you tell us about the impact of that breakthrough, tell us first how severe malaria is in Kenya.
I think one of the diseases that is commonly known in this country is malaria. So we do know the impact of malaria in our lives, and especially the mothers know the impact of malaria in their children. What I do know is that in the last Kenya Malaria Indicator Survey that was done in 2020 showed that we have a national prevalence of 6%, right from 8% from 2015. However, in the Lake endemic region, we do have a prevalence of currently 20%, up from previously 27%. So the prevalence still hasn't gone down as we expected. It's sort of plateaued. Then the second thing is that malaria outpatient visits account for the second highest in the country, so especially in the endemic regions. So if you go to the outpatient clinics, you're more likely to see someone who has presented with malaria. And then lastly, malaria disease still contributes to the top 5 diseases that are affect children under 5. So it contributes to a high mortality and morbidity to children who are aged less than 5 years of age. Yeah.
Kenya was amongst the 3 countries chosen for the malaria vaccine trials. I think the other one was Ghana and Malawi. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what major health impact will this vaccine have, especially to us here in Kenya?
All right, so what we did do is that between 2009 to 2014, Kenya was one of the countries that participated in the phase 3 clinical trials. There were 7 countries that were participating, and Kenya had 3 sites that participated. So that is Kilifi, Siaya, and Mboya. From 2019, Kenya did implement the malaria vaccine into the routine national immunization program. So what this means for us, for the World Health Organization to actually approve the first vaccine to be used, to be rolled out, it means that we are going to see less cases of severe malaria, less cases of hospitalization, less cases of admissions, especially for children who are under 5 years of age.
Okay. So the rollout is really, children specific. So what are the ages that we are looking at?
So the rollout is children specific. So malaria vaccine is a 4-dose schedule. The first dose is given at 6 months, the second dose at 7 months, the third dose at 9 months, and then the last dose is at 2 years. So it's being given in addition to other childhood interventions. Okay. So for example, at 6 months we give it with vitamin A, and then at 7 months we do include growth monitoring. At 9 months we also give measles, rubella first dose, and then at 2 years we do give vitamin A, deworming, and also growth monitoring. Okay. So this vaccine was actually introduced in the western part of the country because that is where we do have a high to moderate transmission of malaria.
Malaria.
Yeah.
Now, obviously the caveat to this breakthrough is that adults are not eligible. So what does that mean really for them?
Adults are not eligible for this malaria vaccine because, again, we say that malaria contributes to under 5 mortality and morbidity. So what adults need to do, there are other preventive measures that have been put in place by the Ministry of Health, which includes sleeping under treated mosquito nets. So in case they suspect that they have malaria, they need to get treated. And then for the pregnant mothers, they need to, when they know that they are pregnant, they need to go to the facilities and also get started on prophylaxis treatment. Okay. So that applies to those pregnant women who live in the endemic regions. Okay. Yeah.
You say that for the older demographic, you are pushing the use of nets and that kind of thing. But when you go down to the ground, you realize that some of these nets are not being used for the intended purposes. We have people, for example, from the Lake Basin, using them for fishing. And my question then would be, is that an indictment to your awareness programs, for example, do you think?
So what we do, I know that we do have a strong awareness program in place, which is being championed by the National Malaria Control Program to make people aware that they need to sleep under mosquito nets. So in addition to that, there are several campaigns that are actually conducted on after every 3 years. We call them mass net campaigns, which target 27 counties. And then routinely, either to pregnant mothers and also to children who are coming for vaccination, we provide them with insecticide-treated mosquito nets so that they can sleep under them. So it's a continuous advocacy that the Ministry of Health does through the National Malaria Control Program to create awareness and also change behavior when it comes to utilization.
All right, that milestone is obviously an upturn in the management of malaria. So where are the vaccination centers, for example? How will it be administered?
So we are currently rolling out the malaria vaccine. It's being rolled out in 8 counties in the western part of the country. The counties are Kisumu, Siaya, Homa Bay, Migori. Then on the western part we do have Busia, Vihiga, Kakamega, and Bungoma. In those 8 counties, there are 26 sub-counties that are actually offering the vaccine. So we have a network of 600 health facilities in those 26 counties where the vaccines they are being offered free of charge. Okay. So we do have the private facilities, faith-based facilities, and also the FBOs, faith-based organizations that are offering the vaccine for free.
What about those far-flung areas where we find women perhaps giving birth in their homes? Are those people within your framework?
Yes.
Rollout framework. I mean, how do you get to them? The women are giving birth in their homes. They're raising the kids in their homes, but they also need this vaccine.
Yeah. So for such areas, we do have a robust health system in terms of the facilities that offer immunization services. So we do conduct outreaches from health facilities to those remote areas where the caregivers cannot access facilities to come and get the malaria vaccine. So we have that taken care of through outreaches, bringing the vaccines closer to the communities.
And you're also working with the county government?
Yes, we do. Yeah. So in terms of this rollout, we do have the national program, and then we do have the counties. We do have a shared collaboration. So whereas at the national level we do more of policy formulation, resource mobilization, and also procurement of the vaccines, the county on the other side implement the policies, and also they oversee the service delivery of the malaria vaccine and also other interventions.
Okay. In terms of efficacy and safety levels, where would you place this vaccine?
What I do know is that we don't have an intervention that is 100% perfect or effective. Even for the other routine vaccines that we do use, none of them is 100% effective. So for the malaria vaccine, we do have the effectiveness is at 40% against clinical malaria. That's after 4 years, and at 55% at 1 year. So we look at the overall public health impact of the malaria vaccine. So it's going to reduce the cases of severe malaria, it's going to reduce the cases of hospitalization, and also the need to do things like blood transfusions, so which put a lot of pressure on the health systems.
So, I mean, are we out of the woods yet?
We are not yet out of the woods. There is a time we did stall with the malaria interventions. So we were using the insecticide-treated mosquito nets. We were doing spraying, giving the treatment to mothers, doing the prompt diagnosis and treatment, but still the level at which we want, the rate at which we want the burden of the disease to go down was not as fast. So that is why we have an additional intervention, which is the malaria vaccine. So we were not yet out of the woods, and that's why we needed to layer another intervention, which is the malaria vaccine.
So if we are not out of the woods, then which other new mechanisms does the ministry have in place just to make sure that we are on course in terms of in the war against malaria?
So we do have the laid measures that have been set aside by the Ministry of Health. So we'd talked about the sleeping under the mosquito nets. We've talked about the indoor residue spraying. We've also talked about prompt diagnosis and treatment. We also have larviciding, which is supposed to take course in the course of this month, again targeting the 8 counties that were introducing malaria vaccine.
Okay. Yeah. But now, you know, the trial for the malaria vaccine, it kicked off even before the COVID, struck. And I'm wondering, why do you think it's taken so long to come up with a malaria vaccine?
Yeah, I know the malaria vaccine has been in the pipeline for the last 30 years, and it's because of the complexity of the malaria parasite. So a vaccine that targets, a vaccine that to be developed is one that has to target the human, the life cycle of the mosquito in both the life cycle in both the mosquito and also the human, and then the malaria parasite is known to be very evasive. That's why it's taken a long time for us to come up with the first malaria vaccine against a parasite.
Yeah, so it was very, very dodgy.
Yeah, the malaria, the parasite is very dodgy.
Yeah. But when you invoke the use of word vaccine, you know, the skeptics sometimes don't trust these vaccines. Why do you think there's a lot of skepticism from certain quarters?
So what I'd like to say is that before any vaccine is rolled out to the population, we do have rigorous steps that we have to go through. So you've heard about the research. We have the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, which look basically at safety of the vaccine. They look at the schedule and other parameters. So again, there are stringent rules and regulations that have to come out before any vaccine is rolled out to the population. Remember, vaccines are given to healthy people. So the healthy people are very averse to risk. So that's why any vaccine, before we roll it out, we have to follow those stringent measures, and we only use vaccines that have been approved by WHO within the country. And even after being approved by the WHO, it has to be registered by our National Regulatory Authority, that is PPB, and we continue monitoring the safety of those vaccines even when they're in wider use. So the vaccines are safe. Okay, they're safe. Now look at China. Is it China or Japan? I think it's China. It was recently declared malaria-free, and I'm thinking, what would it take Kenya to attain, you know, such status? Yeah, so I know there has been a lot of efforts to ensure that we are a nation free of malaria. So we've had the interventions that I earlier talked about, the Ministry of Health has laid down. But the exciting news is that we recently have had WHO approve the wider use of malaria vaccine across sub-Saharan Africa, so which is going to be a game changer when it comes to us moving towards the elimination of malaria in the country. Well, that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much, Dr. Rose Jalango, for honoring our invitation. Well, that's Rose Jalango from the Ministry of Health. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll look at the day's business.
Trying to comfort me! So I can do anything I want. I can have you.
Already thinking about killing me. Though I may have escaped this time, I can't escape forever.
Tell the commissioners to make an appeal and accuse Wang Zhen of abusing his power.
I just hope you can get married to Prince Cheng without any issues.
But you've got to be careful. Stay in the Empress's palace and don't go anywhere.
We've got the Empress Mother's support. Also, we'll just be moving some babies around. They're all...
The Amazons. Explain to me why Vicente was so deeply in debt. If you refuse to tell me now, then the one I will need to ask about it is Victoriano.
He told me that if I prove to him that I love Connie, he'll think about it.
Go and keep that girl that you were kissing and just forget about me.
I don't understand why you ended up getting divorced. What happened there?
But don't give my daughter any trouble.
Deborah? What's that woman doing here?
She came back. Mommy came back.
Good evening. We're so glad that you're still here with us. I am Cynthia Nyamai, and now to today's business news. The government paid 1.3 billion shillings in demurrage fees to oil companies between January to June this year, according to the Finance Committee of the National Assembly. The committee is accusing the Ministry of Petroleum officials of colluding with oil dealers and port officials to keep ships waiting in the high seas, attracting huge penalties facilities, which are then shared among corrupt state officials.
For many years, importers have decried high demurrage costs at the port of Mombasa, which is charged on a daily basis at a cost of $150 per container. Despite the expansion of port infrastructure in the last 10 years, shippers continue to face delays in offloading their cargo due to inefficiencies at the port of Mombasa. The Petroleum Ministry is on the spot for inefficiencies at the oil jetties, leading to high demurrage charges that are passed on to the consumers, increasing the cost of pump prices.
You will agree with us that on average you have this vessels accumulate an average overstay of 10 days. So we receive these timesheets, we look at the charter parties, but ultimately to the question that the chair specifically put to me as to how are they paid and their proof of payment, because this is a contract between the importer and the vessel owner. Once we've had sight of the charter party, we don't go further.
The Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, through its chair Gladys Wanga, said private entities may be taking advantage of a lack of stringent stipulations on tendering contracts to intentionally delay oil evacuation and claim high fees when their ships overstay at Kenyan ports, leading to higher fuel costs.
From some quarters we are being told there are cartels in the ministry that are operating, and that's the reason the prices are high. Probably these are the people that are being protected.
We want to see audited accounts for the last 10 years. That is going to give us a picture of who takes what, who puts in what. Do you have 10 years audited accounts of demurrages?
The committee says between January to June 2021, the government was charged 1.3 billion shillings by oil importers for delays at the port of Mombasa.
The challenge that the government had, and we as the regulator had raised at the time, was that you would have private cargoes or imports coming to Shimanzi Oil Terminal and vessels overstaying there, and the government had no way of verifying, because on that other end, the terminals that these vessels were discharging into are private facilities.
The committee is probing the surge in fuel prices in Kenya that has caused serious public uproar after petrol prices were adjusted by 7 shillings in the last review on the 14th of September this year. Of interest to the legislators going forward is that who's in charge of the open tender system, who stipulates the charges to these importers, and what other legislation can be made to make this better. Alan Auko, Prime Edition.
Only certified horticultural exports will be allowed to access the international markets. The Kenya Bureau of Standards says it is in the process of acquiring new test kits to enforce global exports testing standards. Kenya is targeting to increase horticultural exports to China, European Union and the United States that have strict standards.
$1 billion shillings in the year 2020. Flowers earned the country 108 billion shillings, fruits 18 billion shillings, while vegetables earned 24 billion shillings. Kenya plans to increase its export base to 300 billion shillings by the year 2025 through the improvement of testing standards. The Kenya Bureau of Standards say it will ban all non-certified horticultural products from the export markets.
As you are aware that the country is actually looking forward to boosting the production of avocados, because there's a big market out there. If they are not meeting the quality, quality requirement, then we cannot be able to export.
KEBS says it plans to scale up testing of horticultural consignments destined for the European market to ensure compliance to the bloc's phytosanitary standards.
Barriers to trade are made up often of technical barriers and quality and safety standards. So in order to be able to export, certain standards need to be met both by the producers but need to be certified to be met, and that's where KEBS come in.
KEBS is urging farmers to adhere to the minimum residue levels EU regulations, especially during the planting stage, to help conform with international food safety standards across the whole production value chain.
The primary production of food is key for food safety, and these are the raw materials that will be processed to food, to other processed food that will enter into the global market.
To help upscale testing standards, KEBS has acquired new testing technology from the European Union. The equipment is worth over $500 million shillings, procured through the Market Access Program.
We want to look at more trade, both domestic, regional and international, so that we can move out more export products, create more jobs.
Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Now to some good news, where Kenya and the United States have signed a private sector agreement that seeks to expand trade and investments between the two countries. President Uhuru Kenyatta witnessed the agreement signed between the Kenya Private Sector Alliance and the Corporate Council on Africa, which provides a framework for Kenyan and American businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, to partner through information sharing, training, logistics and financing.
The Kenya Private Sector Alliance signed the deal with Corporate Council on Africa, which is the largest umbrella body of American companies operating in Africa. Speaking at the signing ceremony in New York on the first day of his two-day official visit to the U.S., the president said the government-backed pact was part of efforts to support the growth of Kenyan SME sector as a key enabler of wealth and employment creation. President Kenyatta noted that both Kenyan and U.S. economies are largely driven by SMEs, saying that the agreement would help accelerate Kenya's economic recovery efforts from the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. The president challenged the American government to be a reliable and predictable trading partner for the initiative to succeed.
A good number of SMEs who either are already partnering or working in Kenya, and you will form the basis of what I believe will be a prosperous future for our two countries, but also an opportunity to create investment where it matters. And investment matters when it changes lives. SMEs change lives.
On her part, the CEO of CCA, Floriliza, commended President Kenyatta for creating a conducive business environment for local and foreign investments to thrive by championing progressive policies and setting up the enabling infrastructure.
The U.S.-Kenya SME Trade Initiative is a vision of CCA and KEPSA, and the concept for this initiative came from a desire that Carol and I both have to take concrete steps to scale up U.S.-Kenya trade, recognizing that SMEs are a driving force.
KEPSA CEO Carol Kariuki said her organization's singular focus was to ensure Kenyan SMEs tap into and benefit from the expansive and lucrative American market by leveraging on the networks and expertise provided by its Trade and Investment Pact with CCA. Betty Kiptum, Prime Edition.
Indeed, SMEs do change lives. That is all from the business desk. Up next, sports with Karen.
A very good evening to you. I do hope you're holding up well. It's now time for us to take a look at what's making headlines in the world of sports. My name is Karen Kibet. Now, Harambee Starlets intensify their training ahead of their scheduled two-legged 2022 Africa Women Cup of Nations qualifier against South Sudan. The team will be in action on 20th, while the return match will be played on 24th of this month.
The Kenyan women football team will be looking to qualify for the African Women Cup of Nations for the second time in history, which will ultimately earn them a slot in the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup that will be co-hosted by New Zealand and Australia.
Nimefika, nimepata, there is energy, there is positive energy.
Juu mwisho time nilikuwa hapa ni ile time tuliqualify kwenda AFCON. The other time ya Kitorogini kidogo tukafail. But this time it's do or die. You have to do it because tuliset ile record. So inafaa kuwa tunaendelea ku maintain. So
it's a winning spirit. Mi kwangu vile naona everyone is ready to work. Kila mtu anapigania na jikaza, anataka kupigania nchi yake.
Meanwhile, Dorcas Shikombe, Mwanalima Adam and Elizabeth Wambui have not yet reported to the camp due to club assignments.
Thank you for that report. On to matters athletics. 18 Kenyan athletes who will feature in the 8th edition of Sanlam Cape Town Marathon were today flagged off ahead of the race set to be held this Sunday. Last year's edition was suspended after disruption by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Daniel Muteti, who finished in the second position in the 2019 edition, will be seeking to show a splendid performance alongside Edul Kiptanui, Jonathan Kipchirchir and Kenneth Korir, among others.
I've been doing my training in different places, and up to now it marks 4 months. Normally what it takes to prepare for a marathon, and I feel like I am prepared to compete on coming Sunday.
Life is a marathon. In other words, it's continuous. It's a long journey. Marathon is 42 kilometers. Life is for your entire life. Some people take 2 weeks. I've seen the oldest person alive in Kenya, 123 years. So life is a marathon.
Other elite athletes will feature in this year's edition include, among others, Stella Chepkosgei, Esther Masharia, Chelagat Elizabeth and Lydia Naliaka. Frederick Moki for Prime Edition.
Moki for that report. Finally, substitute Ramadan Sobi netted a 72nd minute goal and helped Egypt seal a comfortable 3-0 win over Libya in a World Cup qualifying match that was played last evening in Libya. The Pharaohs top Group F with 10 points, while Libya sits second with 6 points. Elsewhere, Cameroon claimed a 1-0 win over Mozambique, while Germany became the first team to join hosts Qatar at the 2022 World Cup with a comfortable 4-0 victory against North Macedonia.
2-1 defeat at home to North Macedonia.
Slade again plays it in. Laid off by Salah. A chance here, is it? And it is the opening goal for Egypt. What a goal too. Thunderous finish into the corner. Plays it in towards Mohamed. And there is the second for Egypt. A wonderful cross. Running at the defence here, Salah slips it through to Subi. Is it a third? It is. A lovely little dinked finish by Ramadan Subi.
That's all we had for you right here at the KBC Sports Desk News. Let's do this all over again tomorrow, same time, same place. Do have yourself a lovely evening. My name is Karen Kibet, but I hand you back to Tom and Purity.
All right, she's done. Kongoi.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you to our viewers here in Kenya and around the world. We have a lot of your feedback coming in. We have someone watching us all the way from Lemi Sako, who is tuned in from Madrid, Spain. Thank you so much for watching Prime Edition tonight. Then let me just have a look at a few tweets. Sir Albert, thank you for updating us. KBC Channel 1 News tuned in as always. Wanda Wesonga, you're saying you're watching Prime Edition tonight. Mike, you say you're watching from Kisumu. Very comprehensive news right there. Thank you. Simau, watching from Kayole. We'll see you again next week, Monday and Tuesday at 9 p.m. for Prime Edition. My name is Purity Museo. Lucy Maura has been our sign language interpreter tonight. Good night and God bless.
Thank you, Purity, for reading that feedback. It's because we value you and we trust that the last 1 hour or so was worth your while. My name is Mboya and from the capital city, Nairobi, Kenya. Good night and God bless you.
God bless.
Beauty College.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College, with branches in Nairobi, Eldoret, Thika and Meru. Did you know that we are a TV